Hello, friends. Today we're going to talk about the ancient Scythians. The Scythians were a people of the endless steppe, riders whose entire lives unfolded beneath the open sky and across rolling fields of grass that stretched farther than the eye could ever hope to see. Tonight, I want to tell you a story not just about who they were, but about what it felt like to live their life. And to guide us through that world, we will follow a young Scythian named Ardan, whose journey through the steppe will reveal to us the rhythm, the spirit, and the mysteries of his people. But before we dive into his adventures, let me ask you something. What do you imagine when you think of life in a land without borders? A place where your home is the horizon, where the sky is your ceiling, and where your footsteps leave no permanent mark on the earth? Would that kind of freedom excite you, or would it make you uneasy? For the Scythians, such freedom was simply life. Ardan stood at the edge of the morning camp, watching how the early sun spilled across the plain. The light was soft and golden, shimmering over the tall grasses that swayed like waves on a quiet sea. His young horse, Windrunner, nuzzled his shoulder, warm breath brushing against his cheek. To the Scythians, horses were more than animals. They were companions, partners, and symbols of strength. A Scythian without his horse was like a bird without wings. Ardan had grown up hearing this, and every day he felt the truth of it. His father often reminded him that the steppe was both a friend and a test. The steppe can be kinder than a mother and harsher than a blade, he would say. Respect it, and it will teach you everything. Ardan tried to take those words to heart. He looked at the horizon and wondered what lessons waited for him out there. And what about you, my friends? Would you feel free standing in such a place, or would the emptiness overwhelm you? Ardan's life, like that of all Scythian children, was shaped by movement. He learned to ride before he learned to speak clearly. He learned to shoot a bow long before he understood the deeper meaning of the stories his elders told. Every day was a mixture of tasks, games, and lessons. The youths of the tribe would race horses across the hills, practicing how to shoot while riding, how to balance using only their legs, how to feel the rhythm of the animal beneath them, as if the two shared a single heartbeat. What skill do you wish you had learned early in life? Something physical, something artistic. The Scythians believed that the earlier one learned, the closer one's abilities came to instinct. And instinct, in their world, meant survival. Ardan admired the older warriors, who could loose an arrow at full gallop and strike exactly where they intended. Their bows had a distinctive curve. Their arrows were short but deadly, and their movements were fluid, almost dance-like. Watching them, Ardan imagined himself doing the same one day. He hoped that when the time came, he would be ready. His mother worked nearby, crafting leather bags and straps. She decorated them with symbols of strength and protection, each pattern carrying meaning. She believed that the world spoke through signs, and that those who paid attention would never lose their way. Ardan watched her hands move, steady and skilled, and he wondered whether his own would one day move with that same certainty. The Scythian camp was alive with purpose. Their yurts, made of felt and wood, stood in a wide circle, arranged to shield the people from the wind. Smoke rose from the central fire, carrying with it the smell of cooked meat and herbs. People moved about with quiet coordination, each one knowing their task. The fire, always burning at the center, was not only warmth and food. It was the heart of the tribe. In the evenings when the flames were tall and the sky dark, the entire community gathered around it to tell stories, share news, or simply sit together. Have you ever thought about what it means to have a center in your life, a place or a feeling that grounds you? For the Scythians, the fire was exactly that, something constant in a world that was always moving. Their clothes were made from heavy wool and leather, keeping them warm during the cold nights. Many wore golden decorations shaped like animals, stags, panthers, griffins, each representing qualities the Scythians valued. A running stag symbolized speed and grace. A crouching panther symbolized power. A griffin with the body of a lion and the wings of an eagle symbolized protection and the mysteries of the unseen world. Ardan had a small golden plaque shaped like a stag. When he touched it, he imagined that the spirit of the animal watched over him, guiding his steps and lending him courage. Ardan often wondered how much the world beyond the horizon could hold. The elders spoke of distant forests where trees rose higher than any tent pole, of mountains whose snowy peaks pierced the sky like the points of spears, and of seas so vast that even the greatest horse could gallop for days without touching land. The boy dreamed of seeing them all one day, but for now, the steppe was enough. It was his home, his school, his first great mystery. During the late afternoon, when the heat softened and the grass rustled with a cooler breeze, Ardan joined the other children for practice. Today, the task was to ride at a steady pace while shooting at wooden targets placed in a loose circle. The targets were not large, and missing them was common, but hitting even one brought cheers from friends and approving nods from adults who supervised from a distance. Ardan mounted Windrunner, feeling that familiar thrill, the mixture of excitement and a hint of fear, the kind that makes the world sharper. He urged the horse forward, gripping with his legs as he reached for the bow. The first arrow flew too wide, disappearing into the grass. The second struck the edge of a target, which still counted as a good hit for someone his age. The third arrow flew clean and straight, sinking into the center of the next board. A small burst of pride filled him, warming his chest like sunlight. And what about you, my friends? Do you remember the feeling of doing something difficult for the first time and finally succeeding? That spark of confidence that makes you want to try again and again? When the practice ended, Ardan and the others raced one another across the plain. Dust rose behind the horses as they galloped. The children shouted, laughed, and leaned forward against the wind. For a moment, Ardan felt as if he truly were part of the sky, part of the endless blue that arched over the world. His hair whipped behind him. His eyes watered from the rush of air. But he didn't care. This was freedom, pure and unrestrained. Evening settled slowly over the camp, painting the horizon deep shades of orange and purple. Ardan dismounted, patting Windrunner's flank. The horse shook its mane and trotted off toward the herd, where it would spend the night among the others. Ardan headed toward the center of the camp, where the fire was already lit, crackling with dry branches. Families gathered around it, sitting on rugs and cushions, while elders prepared to speak. Every night, someone told a story. Sometimes it was a tale of war, of battles fought long before any child was born. Sometimes it was a story of spirits who roamed the grasslands, watching over the living. Tonight, the storyteller was old Kemar, whose beard was gray and whose eyes seemed to glow with the memories of 100 lifetimes. The children moved closer. Even the adults listened intently, for Kemar's stories were known to carry bits of wisdom hidden inside. Long before any of us walked these plains, he began, there was a stag who ran faster than the wind. But he was no ordinary stag. He shone with a golden light brighter than fire. Wherever he stepped, the grass grew taller, greener, stronger. The people followed him, for they believed he was sent by the gods to show them the way. His voice was deep and steady, weaving the tale like a thread. Ardan leaned in, completely absorbed. But one day, Kemar continued, the golden stag vanished. Some say he returned to the heavens. Others say he still runs across the farthest edge of the world, where the sky meets the earth. And those who are pure of heart, those who ride with courage, may one day see him again. The old man's eyes drifted across the crowd, settling briefly on Ardan, who swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the gaze. Do you believe in signs, my friends? In omens? In symbols that seem to whisper to us, even though they make no sound? Ardan believed. He could not help it. The world of the Scythians was full of such things. Ancient spirits, sacred animals, the voice of the wind itself. And as the fire flickered and sparked, he imagined the golden stag running across the fields just out of sight. After the storytelling, families shared food, roasted meat, milk, fermented drinks that warmed the body, and flatbread cooked between stones. Ardan ate with his parents, feeling the warmth of the flames on his face. His father spoke quietly with other warriors, discussing the next move of the tribe. His mother braided strands of red and brown cloth into a length of rope, humming softly as she worked. The night was peaceful, gentle, the kind that made the chaos of the world seem distant. When sleep finally came, Ardan lay inside the family's yurt, listening to the familiar sounds. The rustle of felt, the distant call of a night bird, the soft snort of a horse outside. His mind wandered. He imagined himself riding farther than any Scythian had gone before. He imagined discovering new lands, new people, new wonders. He imagined standing tall, like the heroes in the stories, brave, strong, wise. And what do you dream of when you lie down at night? Do your dreams carry you someplace new, or do they bring you comfort from what you already know? The next morning began before the sun rose. Ardan's father shook him gently, whispering that it was time to help prepare the herd. The boy rubbed his eyes, still heavy with sleep, and stepped outside. The air was crisp and cold, the sky still dark except for a few fading stars. Horses whinnied quietly as the adults moved among them, checking hooves, tightening harnesses, and preparing for the day's tasks. Ardan found Windrunner, who nudged him with playful impatience. The boy smiled and scratched the horse behind the ear. There was a comfort in these small routines, in the familiar rhythm of feeding, watering, and caring for the animals. Scythian life was in constant motion, but some things were steady. The bond between rider and horse was one of them. The tribe was preparing to move again. The grass in this area was thinning, and the elders had decided that it was time to seek fresher pastures. Moving the entire camp was a great undertaking. Yurts needed to be dismantled, supplies packed onto wagons, animals gathered and counted. It required coordination, strength, and patience. For the young, it was both exhausting and exciting. And you, friends, would you enjoy a life where packing up your entire home was a regular event? Would the change inspire you or tire you? Ardan helped his mother fold heavy woolen blankets and tie them with leather cords. He carried bags to the wagon and secured them under his father's watchful eye. The camp buzzed with activity. The sound of voices, hooves, and wooden wheels blended into a steady hum. By midday, everything was ready. The tribe formed a long line across the steppe, wagons rolling in the center, riders flanking the sides, herders guiding the animals. Windrunner carried Ardan near the rear of the column, where he could see the trail stretching ahead like a promise. The ground vibrated with the movement of so many feet and hooves. Dust rose in soft clouds, catching the sunlight in a golden haze. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of distant flowers and the faint memory of rain. Ardan breathed deeply, feeling alive, energized. He was part of something vast, a living river of people flowing through the world. The tribe's movement was slow but steady, measured by the needs of the animals and the terrain. They would travel until the evening, stop to rest, and then continue the next day. As they rode, Ardan's father spoke quietly to him about responsibility. "One day," he said, "you will lead others. But a leader must first learn to observe. The steppe speaks to those who listen. Look around you. What do you see? Ardan looked. He saw the patterns of the land, patches of darker grass where the soil was richer, trails made by herds of wild horses, distant shapes of birds circling above. He saw how the tribe's position shifted slightly with the wind, how the wagons stayed in the center for protection, how the warriors rode with a certain alertness, even in peaceful times. I see movement, Ardan said, and I see order within it. His father smiled. Good. Remember that. The afternoon stretched on. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, casting shadows that moved like living creatures. The rhythm of the journey lulled Ardan into a calm state, where his thoughts flowed without effort. He wondered what awaited them in the next valley, what animals they might encounter, what stories might unfold. And what about you, my friends? Do long journeys calm your mind, or do they fill you with restless curiosity? The sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the vast steppe. Ardan's muscles ached from riding, but he did not complain. He knew that endurance was as important as skill. His thoughts wandered to the stories told by the elders the night before, the golden stag, the spirits that roamed the plains, the distant lands that no one from his tribe had yet seen. Every story was a lesson, every lesson a piece of a larger world that Ardan was only beginning to understand. As the tribe slowed for a brief rest, Ardan dismounted and led Windrunner to a patch of grass. He knelt beside the horse, running his hands through its mane, and whispered quietly, as if sharing secrets. There was comfort in this ritual, a connection that went beyond words. Horses, like the steppe itself, had a rhythm. Those who could feel it would always know the right moment to act, the correct pace to maintain, and the subtle signs that danger or opportunity was near. Ardan's father approached, carrying a small bundle of dried meat and bread. He handed it to Ardan with a nod. "Eat," he said. "You will need your strength for the next stretch." Ardan took the food, chewing slowly, savoring each bite. The flavors were simple, yet nourishing. Milk, meat, and bread had sustained Scythians for generations, and there was wisdom in this simplicity. As the afternoon wore on, the camp moved again. Ardan rode with Windrunner along the perimeter, alert for signs of wild animals or potential enemies. The steppe, though beautiful, was full of danger. Wolves, wild horses, and rival tribes all claimed parts of the land. Every decision mattered. Every observation could mean the difference between safety and disaster. By evening, the tribe reached a small river. The horses drank eagerly, and the children laughed as they splashed in the shallows. Ardan felt a sense of wonder at the clarity of the water, at the reflections of the sky mirrored on its surface. Here, in these quiet moments, he felt connected not only to his tribe, but to something larger, something older than himself. That night, The campfire burned brighter than usual. The elders gathered to share stories, and Ardan listened with rapt attention. Each tale carried warnings, wisdom, and glimpses of a world beyond the steppe. One story spoke of a warrior who had crossed great rivers and mountains, who had battled both man and beast, and who returned home wiser and stronger. Ardan imagined himself following a similar path, one day leaving the familiar lands to seek adventure, knowledge, and honor. Sleep eventually claimed him, but his dreams were filled with movement. He rode across vast plains, leapt over streams, and felt the wind whip through his hair. He imagined speaking with distant tribes, discovering lands that shimmered with new colors and strange sounds, and encountering creatures that might be only half real, born of imagination and courage. The steppe had taught him that life was a mixture of reality and story, and that both required courage to navigate. The next morning brought a new challenge. Scouts had reported smoke on the far horizon. Perhaps another tribe, perhaps travelers, perhaps something unknown. The elders quickly gathered, discussing strategies and risks. Ardan listened closely, feeling a thrill that ran through his veins. Encounters with strangers were moments of possibility, where danger and opportunity intertwined. He mounted Windrunner, ready to follow his father as they rode toward the distant smoke. The wind carried the faint scent of burning grass and wood. Ardan felt his heart pound, part excitement, part fear. He knew that every step forward into the unknown was a lesson, every choice a reflection of his growing maturity. The elder's eyes watched him, and he felt both the weight of expectation and the pride of belonging. As the tribe approached the source of the smoke, they saw a small camp of travelers. The strangers were wary, but not hostile. Negotiations and gestures passed between the groups, demonstrating the careful balance of communication and respect that the Scythians had learned over generations. Ardan observed intently, noting the body language, the tones of voice, and the unspoken rules of engagement. This was more than survival. It was understanding how to navigate a complex world. That night, after the encounter, the tribe settled near a grove of trees beside the river. Ardan sat quietly by the fire, pondering what he had seen. Each experience, no matter how small, shaped him. Every encounter with the unknown tested his judgment, courage, and wisdom. And every day, the steppe seemed to whisper new lessons, if one only listened closely. Do you, my friends, ever notice how even simple experiences can teach you something profound? Ardan understood that to truly live in the steppe was to always learn, to always observe, and to always respect the land, the animals, and the people who shared it. The world was vast, unpredictable, and magnificent, and he was only beginning to uncover its secrets. The following days brought new lessons for Ardan. Each sunrise painted the steppe in different hues, gold, rose, and pale blue, and each sunset reminded him how fleeting time could be. The tribe moved steadily across the plains, stopping only to water the horses, rest, or gather herbs. Ardan learned to read the land, noticing where the grass was rich enough for the herd, where the ground hid treacherous holes, and where the tracks of other travelers could be traced. One morning, scouts returned with news of wild horses in a nearby valley. These were not ordinary horses. They were faster, wilder, and would require great skill to capture. Ardan's heart raced at the thought of seeing them. The elders decided that a small hunting party would attempt to drive the horses into a natural enclosure so the tribe could claim a few. Ardan was allowed to accompany them, and he prepared carefully, checking his bow, arrows, and saddle. As they approached the valley, the ground trembled with the thundering of hooves. The wild horses were magnificent, their coats shimmering in the morning sun. Ardan felt a mixture of awe and fear. The animals moved with a grace and power unlike anything he had seen. His father whispered instructions, teaching him to anticipate the herd's movements, to position himself without frightening the animals, and to act swiftly when the time came. The first attempt was chaotic. Horses bolted in unexpected directions, kicking up dust and throwing the riders off balance. Ardan held tightly to Windrunner, trying to keep up with the herd. He felt the adrenaline surge, his pulse quickening. This was not a game. Every movement mattered. He remembered the words of his father: observe, predict, act, but never underestimate what you cannot control. By midday, after careful maneuvering and coordination, the elders guided the horses into the enclosure. A few had escaped, but several were safely captured. The tribe celebrated the success, praising Ardan and the other young riders for their courage and attention. Ardan felt a deep sense of pride, but also a humble respect for the wildness of the animals and the vastness of the steppe that nurtured them. That evening, as the campfire burned and the wind whispered through the grass, Ardan reflected on the day's lessons. Courage was not simply acting recklessly. It was understanding your surroundings, respecting the power of nature, and making careful, thoughtful decisions. He realized that the steppe was not just a home. It was a teacher, relentless, but fair. The next morning, scouts reported distant smoke on the horizon again. This time it seemed farther and larger. The elders prepared for a longer journey toward it. Ardan mounted Windrunner, feeling the familiar rush of anticipation. Each time the unknown appeared, it brought excitement and risk in equal measure. The steppe, in its endless expanse, held surprises at every turn, and the young warrior was learning to meet them with awareness and courage. As they rode toward the distant smoke, Ardan noticed subtle changes in the terrain. Small hills began to rise in the distance, and clusters of trees appeared along a winding river. The air smelled different, damp, earthy, and alive. These small details, unnoticed by most, were the language of the land. Ardan had learned to read it. He realized that survival and success depended not just on strength, but on perception, understanding, and adaptability. The tribe eventually reached the source of the smoke. A camp of travelers who were not Scythians. They were wary, but peaceful. Gestures and careful signs communicated intent, and soon conversation began. The travelers shared news of distant lands, trading routes, and dangers. Ardan listened intently, absorbing every word. This was his first encounter with people whose lives were so different, yet somehow connected to his own. He saw that courage also meant openness, the willingness to meet strangers with respect and intelligence. That night, Ardan lay beside the fire, gazing at the stars. He thought of the golden stag, of the wild horses, of the unknown lands beyond the steppe. Every experience taught him something new, and every night gave him space to reflect. He understood that growing into a Scythian warrior required more than skill with a bow or mastery of the horse. It required patience, wisdom, and the ability to learn from every moment. Do you ever notice how even a single day can change who you are? How every encounter, every observation, every choice adds a layer to your understanding of the world? Ardan felt that deeply. The steppe had begun to teach him not only survival, but life itself. The following days were filled with travel, training, and observation. Ardan rose before dawn to help with the horses, trained with his bow, learned new ways to track and predict the behavior of animals, and listened to the stories of elders who spoke of battles, alliances, and sacred rites. He saw how the Scythians balanced respect for tradition with the need to adapt to changing circumstances. Every lesson, no matter how small, was a thread in the vast tapestry of knowledge that defined his people. The tribe moved through forests that bordered the steppe, crossed rivers whose currents were swift and cold, and climbed low hills that offered a view of the vast plains stretching endlessly beyond. Ardan learned to anticipate changes in the weather, to sense danger in the rustling of leaves, and to trust his instincts while remaining cautious. His body grew stronger, his mind sharper, and his heart more attuned to the rhythms of the land. Each night, as the campfire burned and shadows flickered across the tents, Ardan thought about the stories told by the elders. Some spoke of battles fought to protect the tribe, others of encounters with strange tribes or wild beasts. Every story contained a lesson: bravery tempered with wisdom, strength guided by respect, and freedom balanced by responsibility. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Ardan's father spoke to him about leadership. "One day," he said, "you will be expected to guide others." But a leader is not only someone who gives orders. A leader observes, understands, and acts with fairness and foresight. Learn to see what others miss, to listen to those who may not speak, and to respect the world around you. Ardan nodded, feeling the weight and honor of the words. He looked at Windrunner, at the distant hills, and at the endless sky. He knew that his journey was just beginning, that the steppe had many lessons yet to teach, and that each day brought him closer to understanding what it truly meant to be a Scythian. The next morning, the tribe began moving again, guided by the rising sun and the careful observations of the elders. Ardan rode near his father, absorbing every detail of the landscape. The steppe was alive with subtle signs. The bending of grass revealing hidden streams, the tracks of predators suggesting nearby danger, and the patterns of birds circling high above, indicating the presence of water or food. Each observation was a thread in a larger tapestry that only patience and attention could reveal. As the day passed, they approached a series of gentle hills. The elders decided to make camp at the base, taking advantage of a sheltered valley. Ardan helped position the yurts and secure the livestock, all the while keeping an eye on the horizon. He had learned that even in moments of routine, vigilance was necessary. The steppe offered both bounty and peril, and the two were often intertwined. During the afternoon, Ardan's father took him aside for a lesson in navigation. They traced the position of the sun, the shapes of clouds, and the shadows of distant hills. "A Scythian without knowledge of the land is blind," his father said. "The stars, the wind, and the water are guides. Learn to read them, and you will never lose your way." Ardan absorbed the instruction with care, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He began to understand that mastery over the steppe required not only strength and courage, but also keen observation and wisdom. As the sun dipped lower, the tribe gathered around the central fire. Elders told stories of their ancestors, recounting the deeds of warriors who had crossed mountains, rivers, and deserts in pursuit of honor and survival. Ardan listened intently, absorbing lessons about courage, cunning, and the sacred bond between the people and their land. Each tale seemed to echo the rhythms of the steppe itself, teaching that life was a continuous balance of challenge and harmony. That night, under a sky glittering with countless stars, Ardan lay awake, thinking of the golden stag, the wild horses, and the faraway lands he had yet to see. He understood that the steppe demanded respect and attentiveness, and that each day brought new challenges and discoveries. He dreamed of crossing rivers, navigating forests, and encountering other peoples, learning their ways while remaining rooted in the traditions of his own tribe. Every detail, every lesson, every observation was a stepping stone toward the man he hoped to become. The following days were filled with movement, training, and small adventures. Ardan rose before dawn to help with the herd, trained with his bow, and learned from the elders about the plants, animals, and winds that shaped life on the steppe. He discovered the subtle differences in animal tracks, learned which herbs could heal and which could harm, and began to sense patterns in the weather that allowed the tribe to anticipate storms and take precautions. Each day tested his body, mind, and spirit in ways both subtle and profound. One afternoon, scouts returned with news of distant smoke rising over a ridge. This time, it was accompanied by signs of human activity. Footprints, broken branches, and distant calls. the elders gathered quickly to discuss a cautious approach. Ardan's heart raced with anticipation. Every encounter with strangers could be an opportunity or a threat. He knew that his attention to detail and calm judgment could be crucial in what might follow. The tribe approached carefully, moving in a formation that balanced defense and observation. Ardan rode near the center, watching the movements of the scouts and the distant figures. As they drew nearer, the smoke revealed itself as a camp of travelers. The strangers were clearly alert and cautious, but not hostile. Gestures were exchanged, hands raised in peace, and soon a dialogue began. Ardan observed every interaction, noting the subtle language of respect, patience, and understanding that guided the encounter. During the evening, after the encounter had ended peacefully, Ardan sat beside the fire and reflected on what he had learned. Courage was not merely action in the face of danger. It was awareness, discernment, and the ability to read both people and the land. Respect, patience, and wisdom were as vital as strength and skill. Every experience, no matter how ordinary it seemed, was a lesson in becoming the man he wished to be. The nights on the steppe were filled with quiet contemplation. Ardan lay beneath the open sky, listening to the sounds of the night, the rustle of grasses, the distant calls of nocturnal animals, the soft snorts of horses. He realized that the steppe was alive in ways that few fully understood, and that those who listened carefully could gain insight, guidance, and even protection. It was a teacher that demanded patience, humility, and attentiveness. In the days that followed, the tribe continued its journey across the rolling plains. Ardan's responsibilities increased as he grew older and more experienced. He helped younger riders, guided the herd, and learned the ways of negotiation and diplomacy from the elders during encounters with other tribes. He began to understand that leadership was a combination of strength, wisdom, and the ability to inspire trust and respect in others. One morning, they reached a large river, wide and fast-flowing. The tribe paused to consider the safest place to cross. Ardan watched carefully, noting the depth, the current, and the stability of the banks. The elders instructed on how to guide the livestock and wagons across. The river was a challenge, but it also offered a moment of beauty and reflection. Ardan marveled at the clarity of the water, the way the sunlight danced across the surface, and the life that thrived along its edges. As they crossed, Ardan felt a mixture of excitement and caution. Each step in the water required balance and attention. Horses were guided carefully, and the younger children were assisted by experienced adults. The tribe worked together seamlessly, a testament to generations of knowledge passed down and adapted to the land. Ardan realized that strength alone was never enough. Cooperation, foresight, and understanding were equally essential. That evening, after the crossing, the tribe made camp near a grove of trees beside the river. Ardan sat quietly by the fire, thinking about the lessons of the day. The steppe, the river, the hills, and the strangers they encountered were all part of a larger world that was complex, beautiful, and challenging. Every day was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to prepare for the greater adventures that lay ahead. Ardan felt a deep sense of connection to his tribe, to the land, and to the vastness of the world that stretched beyond the horizon. He understood that life on the steppe was more than survival. It was a journey of understanding, a dance with the natural world, and a constant practice of courage, observation, and respect. The lessons of the steppe were endless, and he embraced each one with determination and curiosity. The days that followed were filled with the rhythm of travel, training, and the subtle lessons of the steppe. Ardan rose before dawn each day to help with the herd, to check the horses for injuries, and to learn from the elders about the signs in the land. He observed tracks of predators, learned to recognize edible plants and herbs, and noticed the way the wind carried scents and sounds from distant places. Every day demanded attention, endurance, and patience, and every day taught him something new about the world. One afternoon, as the sun burned high in the sky, scouts reported distant smoke rising from the horizon once again. This time, the elders instructed the tribe to prepare for a cautious approach. Ardan's heart raced with anticipation. Each encounter with the unknown was a test, a lesson, and a possibility for adventure. He checked his bow and quiver, adjusted Windrunner's paddle, and followed closely behind his father as they rode toward the distant smoke. The tribe moved as one, with warriors on the flanks, herders guiding the animals, and the children riding alongside the adults. The ground beneath them was a mixture of dry grass, small rocks, and patches of richer soil, which the elders read as carefully as one might read a map. Ardan noticed the subtle bends in the grass, the faint impressions left by animals, and the distant shapes of hills that offered both shelter and potential danger. As they approached, the source of the smoke became clear. A camp of travelers had made a fire near the base of a small hill. They were alert, observing the approaching Scythians with cautious eyes. Gestures of peace were exchanged, and soon communication began. Ardan watched closely, learning the ways of diplomacy, respect, and subtle power. Even in moments of potential conflict, there was an order, a protocol, and a rhythm that could guide interactions safely. That night, after the encounter had ended without violence, the tribe made camp nearby. Ardan sat by the fire, reflecting on what he had learned. Courage was not simply fighting. It was understanding, observation, and knowing how to act wisely. Respect for others, patience in uncertain situations, and awareness of the land were all forms of strength. He realized that every day offered lessons, and that the steppe itself was a teacher, relentless yet fair. In the days that followed, the tribe continued its journey across plains, rivers, and rolling hills. Ardan's responsibilities grew. He assisted younger riders, guided livestock, and helped prepare food and supplies. The elders taught him about the sacred rituals of the tribe, the ceremonies honoring the spirits of the land, the animals, and the ancestors. Each ritual, each story, each song carried layers of wisdom and tradition that connected the present to the past. Ardan began to understand that being a Scythian was not merely about skill with weapons or mastery of riding. It was about harmony with the environment, respect for life, courage tempered by intelligence, and the ability to act decisively when necessary. The steppe demanded these qualities, and those who failed to heed its lessons often learned them too late. He took these truths deeply into his heart. One morning, the tribe reached a high plateau overlooking a wide valley. From this vantage point, Ardan could see the horizon stretching endlessly, rivers winding like silver threads, and distant forests that rose like emerald islands in the sea of grass. He felt a profound sense of awe. The world was immense, filled with hidden mysteries and opportunities, and the steppe had taught him that observation and patience were the keys to navigating it successfully. As the tribe descended into the valley, they discovered signs of other travelers, footprints in the soil, remnants of a fire, and scattered objects that suggested temporary habitation. The elders instructed caution. Ardan rode with vigilance, scanning the land for hidden dangers, while also noting the traces of life that hinted at connections beyond their own tribe. Every detail mattered. Every observation carried potential significance. The tribe made camp near a clear stream that flowed through the valley. Horses drank eagerly. Children played along the water's edge, and adults prepared for the night. Ardan sat quietly, listening to the murmurs of the stream, the distant calls of birds, and the soft rustle of grass. He reflected on the lessons of travel, observation, and patience. The steppe had shown him the value of careful attention, of learning from both nature and people, and of understanding that every moment carried meaning. Evening brought storytelling. The elders shared tales of warriors who had crossed mountains, of hunters who had tracked animals across vast distances, and of tribes who had encountered strangers and survived through wisdom and courage. Ardan listened intently, absorbing the lessons embedded in each story. He understood that knowledge was not only found in skill, but also in memory, tradition, and the ability to interpret signs from the world around him. The nights on the steppe were long and quiet, filled with reflection and the sounds of nature. Ardan lay beneath the stars, feeling both small and infinite. He imagined the golden stag, the wild horses, and lands he had not yet seen. Each dream, each thought, each memory contributed to the shaping of the man he would become. The steppe was a teacher, a guide, and a mirror, reflecting both strength and humility. The next morning, Ardan awoke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the felt walls of the yurt. The smell of dew on the grass and the distant calls of wild birds filled the air. He rose quickly, eager to assist with the herd and begin the day's lessons. Every morning was an opportunity to learn something new, whether it was the behavior of the animals, the movement of the wind, or the subtle signs that foretold weather changes. The steppe demanded vigilance, and in return, it offered knowledge, insight, and survival. Ardan's father had instructed him in reading the tracks of animals. Today, they examined hoof prints in soft soil near the riverbank. "Notice the depth and spacing," his father said, pointing with a careful hand. "It tells you not just the size and species of the animal, but its direction, speed, and sometimes even its purpose." Ardan traced the prints with his fingers, feeling the impression of every step. Slowly, he began to understand that the land itself communicated in a language of shapes, patterns, and rhythm. By midday, the tribe had moved further along the valley. They stopped near a rocky outcrop, where the wind funneled through small canyons, carrying sounds from far distances. Ardan observed how the elders positioned the camp strategically, using natural features for protection and surveillance. He realized that each decision had consequences for safety, efficiency, and comfort. Survival on the steppe was not merely physical. It was intellectual, strategic, and deeply tied to awareness. During the afternoon, scouts reported the presence of a small herd of wild goats on a distant slope. Ardan's heart raced at the thought of watching the hunt. The elders organized a small party to approach carefully, emphasizing patience and observation. Ardan followed closely, learning to move with minimal noise, to blend into the shadows, and to anticipate the movement of prey. It was a lesson in discipline, restraint, and the harmony of predator and prey. A lesson that extended beyond hunting to life itself. The hunt was successful. The goats were captured without unnecessary risk or waste. Ardan learned how to respect the animals, to honor their lives by using every part, and to appreciate the skill and timing required. The elders praised the young riders, and Ardan felt a mix of pride, humility, and awe at the balance of strength and wisdom required on the steppe. Each experience reinforced the understanding that every action had consequences, and every choice required thoughtfulness. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the valley in hues of orange and violet, the tribe gathered around the central fire. Stories were told of heroes, ancestors, and spirits that roamed the plains. Ardan listened, absorbing the lessons, imagining himself in the roles of warriors and hunters, and considering how he might apply their wisdom in his own life. Each story carried advice, insight, and inspiration, teaching that courage, intelligence, and respect were inseparable. Sleep brought dreams of distant lands, wild animals, and legendary creatures. Ardan envisioned himself riding across vast plains, climbing mountains, and encountering peoples unknown to his tribe. The steppe had taught him patience, observation, and survival, but his mind yearned for adventure beyond familiar boundaries. Each dream reinforced the lessons of the day, shaping his understanding of courage, strategy, and compassion. Over the following weeks, the tribe continued its journey. Ardan's responsibilities grew steadily. He helped younger children, guided animals, assisted in setting up and dismantling camps, and observed the elders as they made strategic decisions. He learned to judge weather, to anticipate changes in terrain, and to understand subtle signs of danger or opportunity. The steppe required both physical and mental mastery, and every day provided rigorous training for both. One morning, scouts returned with news of a distant tribe that might be traveling nearby. The elders decided to send envoys to observe cautiously. Ardan accompanied them, watching carefully as adults negotiated through gestures, signs, and words. He learned that diplomacy was as essential as skill in battle, that understanding motives, reading body language, and showing respect were crucial to avoiding conflict and fostering alliances. Courage, he realized, included intelligence and subtlety. As the day wore on, the scouts returned with detailed reports. The strangers were not hostile, but moving cautiously. The elders explained to Ardan how to interpret these signs, the importance of observation, patience, and measured action. Every encounter was a lesson, every decision shaped by context, and every moment a test of awareness and discipline. Ardan understood that the world was a vast web of interactions where knowledge, perception, and respect determined outcomes. That night, as the campfire crackled and stars glittered above the plains, Ardan reflected on his journey. Each day on the steppe had brought new lessons, challenges, and responsibilities. He had learned to ride, hunt, track, observe, negotiate, and think strategically. He had learned that strength alone was insufficient, and that courage, intelligence, patience, and respect were equally vital. The steppe had shaped him into someone who could navigate a complex, ever-changing world. Over the following days, Ardan's training intensified. Elders instructed him in advanced riding techniques, archery from horseback, and methods for leading small groups of younger riders. They taught him to anticipate danger, to act decisively, and to respect both allies and adversaries. Each lesson was grounded in centuries of knowledge passed down through generations. Ardan understood that mastery required continuous practice, attention, and humility. He also learned more about the spiritual side of his culture. The elders explained the sacred rituals that honored the ancestors, the spirits of the land, and the animals that provided sustenance and companionship. Ardan participated in these ceremonies, understanding that reverence, gratitude, and awareness were as important as physical skill. The steppe was alive, and those who ignored its teachings risked failure or misfortune. As the days passed, Ardan began to feel a deep connection to the land. The steppe was no longer just a home or a training ground. It was a living teacher, a guide that revealed lessons only to those willing to pay attention. Every rustle of grass, every distant sound, every change in wind direction carried meaning. Ardan learned to move silently, to anticipate events before they happened, and to feel the heartbeat of the world around him. His senses sharpened, and he began to understand patterns that had escaped him before. One afternoon, while traveling along the edge of a dense forest that bordered the open plains, Ardan noticed a trail of broken branches and footprints leading deeper into the trees. He followed cautiously, knowing that danger could be near, but also sensing that discovery awaited him. The forest was a different world from the open steppe, its shadows hiding both peril and opportunity. Every step required care, observation, and patience. He remembered his father's words, "The world speaks in silence. Listen carefully." Deep within the trees, Ardan spotted a small herd of deer grazing in a clearing. Their movement was graceful, their attention alert, and every muscle attuned to survival. Ardan crouched low, drawing his bow, and studied them. He felt a mixture of reverence and excitement. Hunting was not merely taking life, it was understanding life, respecting it, and using skill and patience to achieve balance. The elders had taught him that every action carried consequences, and the forest was a classroom for these lessons. After observing for a long time, Ardan withdrew, allowing the deer to continue undisturbed. The experience taught him restraint, respect, and the subtle difference between strength and wisdom. Not every challenge required immediate action. Sometimes the greatest skill was knowing when to wait and when to act. He returned to the camp with a sense of accomplishment, not for a kill, but for understanding the rhythm of life in a new environment. That night, the tribe gathered around the fire, sharing stories and reflecting on the day's journey. Elders recounted tales of hunters and warriors, emphasizing observation, patience, and respect. Ardan listened intently, connecting the stories to his own experiences. He realized that the steppe, the forest, the rivers, and the mountains were all teachers. Every encounter, every observation, every decision was a lesson in living wisely and courageously. The following morning, scouts returned with news of distant smoke rising from the horizon once more. This time, the elders decided to approach cautiously, but with the intention of understanding who or what might be there. Ardan mounted Windrunner, feeling both anticipation and focus. Each encounter with strangers was an opportunity for learning, diplomacy, and understanding. The world beyond their immediate camp was vast, complex, and full of unseen connections. As the tribe moved closer, they observed a small group of travelers. The strangers were clearly alert, but not hostile. The elders led the negotiations, using gestures, careful words, and signs of respect. Ardan watched closely, noting the importance of subtle cues, tone, and body language. He realized that courage was not always about action or confrontation. It could also be patience, awareness, and the ability to act wisely at the right moment. Every lesson from the steppe now had a practical application in human interaction. That evening, after a peaceful encounter, Ardan reflected on his journey. The lessons of the steppe, observation, patience, courage, respect, and strategic thinking, were now intertwined with his experiences among people. He understood that survival and success required balance, strength tempered by wisdom, action guided by observation, and courage balanced with humility. The world was larger and more complex than he had imagined, and he felt both excitement and responsibility. Over the next few weeks, Ardan's training intensified. He learned advanced riding techniques, archery from horseback, tracking of both animals and humans, and strategies for leading groups of riders. Each day brought physical challenges, mental exercises, and lessons in observation. He studied the behavior of animals, the signs of weather, and the subtle cues in human interactions. The elders emphasized that true mastery required continuous learning and humility. No matter how skilled, there was always more to observe, understand, and respect. Ardan also deepened his understanding of spiritual practices. The elders explained rituals honoring ancestors, animals, and the spirits of the land. Ardan participated in these ceremonies, feeling a profound connection to the world around him. He learned that courage and skill alone were insufficient. Awareness, respect, and harmony with the natural and spiritual world were equally essential. Life on the steppe was not simply survival. It was an ongoing practice of balance and insight. One day, the tribe approached a wide river with treacherous currents. Crossing would require careful coordination, intelligence, and courage. Ardan assisted in guiding the animals, reinforcing wagons, and observing the safest paths. The elders instructed him in strategy, timing, and judgment. He learned that even the strongest warriors could fail without careful planning and attention to detail. The river was both obstacle and teacher, demonstrating that awareness and preparation were as vital as physical skill. After successfully crossing, the tribe made camp along the riverbank. Ardan took a moment to reflect on the lessons of the day. The steppe had taught him patience, observation, and respect for the land. The forest had taught restraint and harmony. The river had taught strategy and preparation. Every experience, every challenge, and every observation was shaping him into a warrior who could navigate both the natural world and the complex world of human interactions. That night, lying under the stars, Ardan thought of the golden stag, of distant mountains, and of lands yet unexplored. He realized that his journey was not only about survival, skill, or courage, but about understanding the patterns of life, respecting the forces around him, and growing into a person capable of wisdom, leadership, and empathy. The steppe had given him freedom. The elders had given him knowledge, and each day brought him closer to the person he was destined to become. The next morning, Ardan awoke to the crisp scent of dew and the distant calls of birds circling above the plains. The early light painted the landscape in shades of gold and green, casting long shadows across the rolling hills. He rose quickly, eager to help with the herd and to continue his lessons. Each day on the steppe brought new challenges, new observations, and new opportunities to grow. The land itself seemed to breathe, teaching him to move with awareness, patience, and purpose. Ardan's father approached, carrying a small bundle of supplies. "Today, we will learn to navigate using the stars," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. They moved to an open hilltop where the horizon stretched endlessly. The elder pointed to the rising sun, the position of distant hills, and the subtle patterns in the wind. "The land speaks in many ways," he said. "Observe, listen, and learn. The steppe will guide those who pay attention." Ardan followed carefully, noting every detail, feeling the subtle rhythm of the earth beneath his feet and windrunners' hooves. As the tribe traveled that day, scouts reported signs of wild horses grazing in a distant valley. Ardan felt a thrill of excitement. He had watched wild horses before, but each encounter carried lessons about observation, strategy, and patience. The elders instructed the young riders to approach carefully, to avoid startling the animals, and to anticipate their movements. Ardan's heart pounded as he followed, feeling the rush of the wind and the beat of windrunners' hooves against the ground. This was more than riding. It was a lesson in timing, perception, and harmony with the living world. After hours of careful maneuvering, the wild horses were guided into a natural enclosure created by the surrounding hills. Some escaped, but a few were successfully captured, their strength and spirit intact. The elders praised the young riders, noting their discipline, focus, and respect for the animals. Ardan felt pride, but also humility. The steppe had taught him that success was not only about skill, but about understanding, patience, and respect for the forces greater than oneself. That evening, the tribe settled near a stream. Ardan sat quietly by the water's edge, watching the reflection of the stars on the rippling surface. He thought of the golden stag, the distant mountains, and the rivers yet to cross. Each experience, each lesson, each observation was a piece of a larger puzzle, shaping him into a person capable of wisdom, courage, and leadership. The steppe had become more than a home. It was a guide, a teacher, and a mirror of life itself. Over the following days, the tribe journeyed across diverse terrain, open plains, low hills, and dense groves of trees. Ardan's training continued relentlessly. He practiced advanced riding techniques, honed his skill with the bow, learned to track both animals and people, and studied strategies for leading groups of riders. Every day was rigorous, every task carried weight, and every observation could mean the difference between success and failure. The elders emphasized that mastery was not a destination, but a continuous practice of attention, skill, and humility. One afternoon, scouts returned with news of another tribe moving nearby. The elders prepared a cautious approach. Ardan observed as gestures of peace and respect were exchanged, and subtle negotiations began. He noted the importance of tone, body language, and patience. Courage, he realized, was not merely acting boldly. It was understanding, observing, and choosing the right moment to act. Every encounter with strangers was a lesson in diplomacy, perception, and restraint. As night fell, the tribe gathered around the central fire. Elders shared stories of warriors, hunters, and travelers who had faced great challenges and emerged wiser and stronger. Ardan listened intently, connecting these tales to his own experiences. He understood that strength alone was insufficient. Intelligence, patience, observation, and respect were equally vital. The steppe, the rivers, the forests, and the mountains were all teachers, and he was learning to read their lessons with growing skill. The nights were long, filled with reflection, dreams, and contemplation. Ardan lay beneath the stars, feeling the vastness of the world above and the depth of the land beneath. He thought of the golden stag, the wild horses, and lands he had yet to explore. Each dream carried insight, each memory carried wisdom, and each moment prepared him for the challenges to come. He realized that the journey of life was not merely survival, but understanding, growth, and harmony with the world. Over the next several weeks, Ardan's responsibilities expanded. He guided younger riders, assisted in setting up and dismantling camps, helped herd animals, and observed the elders as they made decisions. He learned to anticipate weather changes, to navigate using natural landmarks, and to interpret subtle signs in the behavior of both animals and people. Every day was a lesson in strategy, patience, and awareness. Ardan's understanding of the steppe deepened, and he felt a growing sense of confidence tempered with humility. One morning, the tribe reached a wide river, its currents swift and powerful. Crossing would require careful planning, coordination, and courage. Ardan assisted in guiding the livestock, reinforcing wagons and observing the safest paths. The elders instructed him in strategy, timing, and judgment. The crossing was challenging, but the tribe succeeded without incident. Ardan learned that preparation, patience, and observation were as vital as physical skill. The river, like the steppe, was both teacher and test. After the crossing, the tribe camped along the river bank. Ardan sat by the water, reflecting on the lessons learned. The steppe had taught him vigilance, endurance, and courage. The forests had taught him restraint and harmony. The rivers had taught him strategy and foresight. Each environment carried its own lessons, and every challenge shaped him into a wiser, stronger, and more aware young man. He understood that mastery of the land required balance, insight, and continuous learning. That evening, under a sky filled with stars, Ardan thought of the golden stag and the distant lands he had yet to see. He felt a deep connection to the steppe, the tribe, and the larger world. Every day, every experience, and every observation contributed to his growth. The journey was far from over, but Ardan knew that he was becoming a person capable of courage, wisdom, and leadership, prepared to navigate both the natural world and the complex world of human interactions. The following morning, the steppe awoke with a soft golden light, and Ardan rose with the sun, eager to continue his lessons. He moved quickly among the horses, checking for injuries and ensuring that the herd was ready for the day's journey. The air was crisp and carried the scent of wet grass, mixed with the faint aroma of smoke from the night's fire. Every morning brought new challenges and new observations. The land spoke to those who listened, and Ardan had begun to understand its subtle language. As the tribe traveled across the open plains, scouts reported movement on a distant ridge. Ardan's heart quickened. Encounters with unknown travelers or wild animals were always filled with both risk and opportunity. The elders instructed a cautious approach, emphasizing observation before action. Ardan followed closely, noticing how they used the terrain to their advantage, how the wind carried sounds, and how shadows could conceal both danger and opportunity. Every detail mattered, and missing even the smallest clue could have serious consequences. By midday, the scouts had confirmed that the movement was a small group of travelers, unarmed and appearing wary. The elders led a careful approach, exchanging gestures of peace and using subtle signs to communicate intent. Ardan watched intently, noting the body language, tone, and timing of the interaction. He understood that diplomacy required patience, awareness, and respect. Courage was not always measured by bold action. Sometimes, the greatest bravery was in restraint and observation. The day passed with careful observation and minor exchanges of supplies and information. Ardan absorbed every lesson, understanding that survival and success depended on both physical skill and social intelligence. The steppe, vast and demanding, had many hidden rules, and those who ignored them risked misfortune. He realized that every encounter, every observation, and every choice carried weight, shaping the outcomes of both immediate and future events. That evening, the tribe made camp along a shallow river. Ardan sat beside the fire, reflecting on the day's lessons. He thought of the golden stag, the pilled horses, and the distant lands yet to explore. Each experience, each challenge, and each observation shaped him, reinforcing the understanding that strength alone was not enough. Wisdom, patience, and respect were equally vital. The steppe was both a guide and a mirror, revealing character and readiness for the challenges ahead. In the days that followed, the tribe continued its journey. Ardan's training intensified. He practiced archery from horseback, advanced riding maneuvers, tracking techniques, and leadership of small groups. He observed the elders as they made strategic decisions about camp placement, travel routes, and interactions with other tribes. Every day provided new lessons, and Ardan began to internalize the rhythms of the steppe, its dangers, its rewards, and the constant need for vigilance and awareness. One morning, scouts reported a herd of wild horses in a distant valley. The elders prepared a careful plan to approach without startling the animals. Ardan's heart raced with excitement. Each wild encounter was a lesson in patience, timing, and respect for life. The tribe moved in a coordinated effort, using natural terrain features to guide the horses. Ardan noted every detail: the direction of the wind, the behavior of the herd, and the positioning of his companions. Success required observation as much as action. By afternoon, several of the wild horses had been captured safely. The elders praised the young riders, noting their discipline and careful observation. Ardan felt pride, but also humility. The steppe had taught him that mastery was not measured solely by achievement, but by understanding, respect, and skillful execution. Every action carried consequences, and every decision required careful thought. That night, the tribe gathered around the fire. Elders told stories of ancient warriors, hunters, and leaders, embedding lessons about courage, wisdom, patience, and respect into each narrative. Ardan listened intently, connecting these tales to his own experiences. He realized that the steppe, forests, rivers, and mountains were all interconnected teachers, offering lessons in survival, strategy, and harmony with the world. Each night, beneath the stars, he reflected on these lessons, strengthening both mind and spirit. Over the following weeks, Ardan's understanding deepened. He learned to anticipate weather changes, interpret animal behavior, and notice subtle shifts in terrain. He guided younger riders, assisted in decision-making, and honed his observational and strategic skills. Life on the steppe demanded constant attention and adaptation. The lessons were endless, and Ardan embraced each with growing confidence and humility, understanding that true mastery was an ongoing journey. One evening, while observing the sunset from a hilltop, Ardan's father spoke to him about leadership. "Strength alone is not enough," he said. "A true leader observes, understands, and acts with fairness and wisdom. Learn to see what others miss, to listen to the unspoken, and to respect the forces around you. Only then will you guide others successfully." Ardan listened carefully, absorbing every word. He understood that leadership required not only skill, but character, patience, and insight. As night fell, Ardan lay beneath the stars, thinking of the golden stag, the distant mountains, and lands yet unseen. He realized that his journey was only beginning. Each day, each challenge, each observation, and each decision shaped him. The steppe, in its vastness, complexity, and beauty, had become both home and teacher. Ardan knew that the lessons he learned here would prepare him for the many adventures, dangers, and discoveries that lay ahead. The following morning, Ardan rose before the sun, feeling the chill of the early air and the soft stirrings of the steppe around him. He moved among the horses, checking each one carefully for signs of fatigue or injury. Every detail mattered. the shine of the coat, the tension in the muscles, and even the direction of the ears could reveal a horse's condition. Ardan had learned that observation was as important as skill. The steppe demanded constant awareness, and he had begun to feel the rhythm of life beneath his feet, windrunners' hooves, and the sway of the grass in the wind. After breakfast, the elders gathered the tribe to discuss the day's journey. Scouts had reported another distant fire, a sign that travelers or tribes were near. Ardan felt the familiar rush of anticipation. Every encounter, every observation, carried lessons in patience, strategy, and courage. The elders instructed careful movement and observation, reminding the young riders that the steppe rewarded attentiveness and punished recklessness. Ardan followed closely, noting the subtle shifts in the terrain and the faint signs of other beings in the distance. By midday, the source of the smoke became clearer. A small group of travelers making camp in a sheltered grove. The elders approached with caution, using gestures of peace and careful communication. Ardan observed closely, noting posture, tone, and timing. He realized that courage was not only in bold action, but in patience, perception, and the ability to act wisely. Every interaction was a test, every observation a lesson, and every choice shaped the outcomes that followed. As the sun dipped lower, the tribe made camp nearby. Ardan sat beside the fire, reflecting on the day's experiences. The steppe, the wind, the hills, and the forests all carried lessons, revealing truths to those who observed carefully. Strength alone was insufficient. Intelligence, patience, and respect for both the land and other people were equally necessary. Ardan understood that mastery required balance, attention, and humility. Every moment was a chance to learn, to grow, and to prepare for future challenges. The following days were filled with the rhythm of travel, work, and learning. Ardan rose before dawn to assist with the herd, practiced advanced riding techniques, honed his archery skills, and studied strategies for tracking both animals and humans. The elders guided him, offering advice and correction, and Ardan absorbed every detail. The steppe taught that every action had consequences, that observation shaped decisions, and that true skill combined patience, wisdom, and courage. One morning, scouts reported a herd of wild horses grazing on a distant slope. Ardan felt a thrill of excitement. Each encounter with wild animals was an opportunity to learn not only hunting skills, but patience, timing, and respect for life. The tribe approached carefully, using terrain to their advantage and moving with precision. Ardan noted every detail: the direction of the wind, the behavior of the herd, and the positioning of the riders. The lessons were practical, immediate, and profound. By evening, several horses had been captured safely. The elders praised the young riders for their skill, patience, and respect for the animals. Ardan felt pride, but also humility. understanding that the steppe demanded both strength and insight. Each day reinforced the importance of observation, foresight, and thoughtful action. He realized that mastery was not merely achieving results, but understanding the forces at play and working in harmony with them. That night, the tribe gathered around the fire. Elders told stories of ancestors, warriors, and hunters, embedding lessons about courage, wisdom, patience, and respect into each tale. Ardan listened intently, connecting these narratives to his own experiences. The stories reinforced what he had learned on the steppe. Strength alone was insufficient. Intelligence and patience were equally vital, and respect for life, land, and people guided every successful action. Over the next weeks, Ardan's skills and understanding deepened. He learned to anticipate weather changes, interpret animal behavior, and notice subtle cues in human interactions. He guided younger riders, assisted in strategic decisions, and honed his ability to observe and adapt. Life on the steppe demanded constant vigilance, thoughtful action, and careful planning. Every day brought new lessons, shaping Ardan into a young man capable of leadership, courage, and wisdom. One evening, perched on a hill overlooking a vast plain, Ardan's father spoke to him about leadership and responsibility. "A true leader sees beyond immediate actions," he said. "Strength is needed, but understanding, patience, and foresight are greater tools. Learn to observe, to listen, and to act with fairness. Only then can you guide others successfully." Ardan absorbed every word, feeling the weight of responsibility and the opportunity to grow. Leadership was more than authority. It was wisdom, discernment, and respect. As night fell, Ardan lay beneath the stars, contemplating the golden stag, the distant forests, and the rivers he had yet to cross. He felt the deep connection of the steppe, the rhythm of the land, and the lessons embedded in every challenge. Each day, each observation, and each experience shaped him. The journey was ongoing, the world vast, and the steppe's lessons endless. Ardan understood that the path ahead required not only strength, but courage, intelligence, and harmony with the world around him. The next morning, a cold wind swept across the plains, ruffling the tall grasses and sending a chill through the camp. Ardan wrapped a woolen cloak around his shoulders and moved toward Windrunner, who whinnied softly in greeting. Today, the elders announced they would travel to a distant canyon where the tribe had found traces of a recently abandoned settlement, an opportunity to study the remains and uncover clues about past travelers. Ardan's curiosity flared. He had already learned so much from the land itself, but the artifacts of others, the objects left behind, carried stories as well. The journey was long. Hills stretched endlessly into the horizon, dotted with patches of wildflowers and low shrubs that bent under the wind. Ardan observed how the elders navigated, choosing paths that provided both safety and speed. Every decision was deliberate. Which hills to skirt, which streams to follow, which shadows offered concealment. He marveled at their ability to read the land like a living map, understanding the flow of water, the movement of animals, and the hidden dangers that could appear without warning. When they reached the canyon, the tribe dismounted, moving carefully among the scattered remnants of the old settlement. Broken pottery, the charred remains of a hearth, and scattered tools lay half buried in the soil. Ardon knelt, brushing dirt away from a fragment of a clay vessel. "Look at this," one elder said, pointing to faint markings along the edge. "Someone left a story here. The marks may indicate trade, rituals, or even messages." Ardon traced the lines with his fingers, imagining the hands that had created them, the lives they had led, and the hardships they had endured. As the sun climbed higher, the elders began to teach lessons about interpreting signs left behind. Each fragment, each footprint, each bent reed or smoothed stone had meaning. Ardon realized that the steppes' lessons extended beyond hunting and riding. History itself was alive in the traces left on the land. He studied with intense focus, asking questions and piecing together the story of the travelers, imagining the family or tribe who had once occupied this spot. Suddenly, a hawk screeched above the canyon walls, circling and then diving. Ardon watched, noting the precision of its movement and the calculated angles of its wings. The elders explained that even birds could teach patience and strategy. Observing a predator, they said, could provide insight into timing and stealth, lessons that applied equally to hunting or avoiding danger. Ardon felt a deepening understanding of the interconnectedness of life. Humans, animals, and the land all teaching simultaneously. By late afternoon, the tribe packed up and continued along the canyon floor, which twisted and narrowed as they moved downstream. Water flowed in shallow pools, reflecting the sky in pale blue mirrors. Ardon helped guide the horses carefully across slick rocks, learning how to judge weight, balance, and the subtle forces of momentum. Even the river demanded awareness. A wrong step could injure a horse or a rider. He realized that the steppe, the canyon, and the rivers were all teachers, and every day required his full attention. As evening fell, the tribe made camp beside a sheltered grove of willows. Ardon helped build the fire and distribute food, then sat quietly watching the flickering flames. The elders gathered the young riders and spoke of resilience. "The steppe gives and it takes," one said. "Strength alone will not always save you. You must learn to endure, adapt, and respect both danger and opportunity." Ardon nodded, feeling the truth of the words. Each day brought new challenges, and each challenge shaped him into someone stronger, wiser, and more aware. That night, under a sky scattered with stars, Ardon lay on his cloak, listening to the distant rush of wind through the canyon. He thought of the travelers who had once camped here, of the hawk above, of the flowing river, and of the endless steppe stretching beyond the horizon. Every trace, every lesson, every story added to his understanding. The steppe was more than land. It was a living teacher, and Ardan felt himself growing into the rhythm of its lessons. He closed his eyes, dreaming of distant mountains, hidden valleys, and the adventures yet to come. The next morning, the steppe stretched endlessly under a pale sun, the wind carrying scents of grass, earth, and distant forests. The tribe had begun to move again, heading toward a valley rumored to be rich with game and fresh water. Ardan rode at the front, flanked by a few other young riders, his eyes scanning the horizon for movement, shadows, or unusual signs. He felt a tension in the air, subtle but persistent, as though the land itself was warning of something unseen. By midday, scouts returning from the hills reported tracks, strange, larger than those of any animal they knew. The elders frowned, exchanging quiet words. "Other humans," one said, his voice low. "Perhaps travelers, perhaps enemies." Ardan's pulse quickened. He had trained for tracking, observation, and hunting, but this was the first time he faced the possibility of conflict with another group. The elders instructed the tribe to proceed cautiously, moving in small, dispersed formations, keeping watch for ambush or danger. As the afternoon wore on, the signs became more evident. Remnants of a fire, broken branches, and footprints crossing the plain. Ardan followed each mark, tracing the movement of the strangers, noting the wind direction and possible vantage points. The elders whispered strategies, teaching him how to approach unseen, how to read behavior from minimal clues, and how to anticipate actions without revealing their own positions. Every instinct, every lesson from the past months was now put to the test. Suddenly, a cry rang out from a distant ridge. A group of men appeared, armed and moving quickly toward the tribe. Ardan's heart pounded. The elders ordered the young riders to flank the attackers, guiding horses through hidden paths in the grass. Ardan held Windrunner steady, feeling the rhythm of the animal beneath him, and waited for the signal to act. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of the approaching men, and the first arrow flew, embedding itself into the ground near the edge of the formation. The tribe was under attack. Chaos erupted. Horses whinnied, and riders shouted warnings. Ardan focused on his training: patience, observation, timing. He drew his bow, taking aim at a man who was attempting to circle the tribe. The arrow flew with precision, forcing the attacker to retreat. Nearby, elders guided other riders in coordinated maneuvers, using the terrain to their advantage. Hills, ridges, and even the tall grass became allies in the defense. Ardan realized that all the lessons of the steppe, tracking, timing, observation, respect for the land, were now vital for survival. The fight continued, a mix of arrows, strategic movement, and shouts. Ardan moved with Windrunner, keeping close to the younger riders, ensuring their safety while targeting threats. The attackers were experienced, But the tribe's coordination, skill, and knowledge of the land began to turn the tide. Ardan felt adrenaline surging, but also clarity. Fear could not dictate action. Only careful thought, respect for the horse, and awareness of surroundings could guide him. After what seemed like hours, the attackers retreated, leaving the tribe unharmed but tense. The elders gathered the group, checking for injuries and assessing the situation. "We have survived today," one said. "But remember this: the steppe teaches not only skill and patience, but the importance of vigilance. Danger is always near, often unseen, and those who respect the land and each other endure." Ardan listened intently, absorbing the weight of the lesson. That evening, as the tribe camped in a hidden hollow, Ardan sat beside the fire, feeling both exhaustion and pride. He had faced real danger for the first time, applying every skill he had learned. The wind whispered through the grass, as if acknowledging his efforts. Ardan understood that the steppe's challenges were not only about riding or hunting, they were about courage, strategy, and the wisdom to survive in a world that demanded respect. Under the stars, he reflected on the day, the attackers, the flight of arrows, the coordination of the tribe, and the steady rhythm of Windrunner's hooves. Every lesson, every observation, every experience had prepared him for this moment, and he knew that even greater challenges lay ahead. The steppe was vast, unpredictable, and alive with lessons, and Ardan felt ready to face them step by step, arrow by arrow, ride by ride. The morning after the attack, the air was heavy with quiet tension. The tribe packed up their camp slowly, checking every horse, every piece of equipment, and every young rider for hidden injuries or weaknesses. Ardan mounted Windrunner, feeling the familiar rhythm of the horse beneath him, and kept a careful watch over the horizon. The elders had decided to move deeper into the steppe, seeking areas less traveled by outsiders, where the tribe could hunt and gather in relative safety. But Ardan knew that danger could appear anywhere, often when least expected. As they rode, the landscape shifted. The open plains narrowed into rolling hills dotted with scattered groves and small rivers. Tracks of other humans became more frequent. Broken branches, footprints, and remnants of fires. The elders interpreted each sign carefully, teaching Ardan how to distinguish between friendly travelers, traders, or potential enemies. Reading the land, one elder explained, is like reading people. Every mark, every shift, every sound carries meaning. Ardan paid close attention, realizing that observation was a skill that could save lives. By midday, the tribe approached a wide valley where smoke rose from several distant fires. Scouts reported a small group of another tribe, observing them from a ridge. The elders called a council, and Ardan watched closely. "We do not yet know their intentions," one elder said. "We approach with respect, but with caution." Ardan felt a thrill of anticipation. This was a chance to practice diplomacy. a lesson as important as riding or archery. The elders guided the tribe closer, using folds in the terrain to conceal their approach. Ardan noticed the subtle signals, the way the horses moved silently, the gestures the elders used to communicate without words, the timing of every step. The other tribes' movements were deliberate, but wary. Ardan realized that every action, every glance, every shift in posture could influence the outcome. Patience, observation, and strategy were more powerful than speed or force alone. When the tribes finally met in the valley, there was a tense silence. Small gifts of food and tools were exchanged, and elders from both sides studied each other carefully. Ardan observed every nuance, the way hands were extended, the angle of the head, the tone of voice. He understood that respect and restraint could be stronger weapons than any arrow or spear. The two groups communicated through gestures, tone, and simple words, gradually easing the tension. Ardan felt the lessons of diplomacy and patience sinking deep into his understanding. As the sun began to set, the elders decided to camp in a neutral area near the river, leaving enough space between the two tribes. Ardan helped secure the horses and guided younger riders to water. Around the fire that evening, the elders spoke of alliances and the delicate balance of power on the steppe. Strength alone does not guarantee safety, one said. Allies, respect, and understanding of others' intentions are equally important. Ardan nodded, realizing that survival required not just skill with weapons or animals, but insight into human behavior. That night, lying under the stars, Ardan reflected on the day's events. He thought of the first attack, the cautious approach to the new tribe, and the lessons embedded in every action. The steppe was teaching him that life was a delicate balance of observation, timing, and respect for all living beings, humans, animals, and the land itself. Each encounter, each challenge, each small choice shaped him, preparing him for the unknown dangers and adventures that lay ahead. The following days were filled with patrols, training, and careful observation. Ardan practiced archery from horseback, tracking both animals and signs of human activity, and learning more about the leadership required to keep a tribe safe. He and a small group of riders explored nearby ridges, noting areas rich with game, hidden water sources, and potential hazards. Every day demanded attention, endurance, and the ability to anticipate both natural and human threats. Ardan felt himself growing stronger, wiser, and more confident. One afternoon, while exploring a narrow canyon, Ardan spotted smoke rising from behind a ridge. He signaled to the elders, and scouts were dispatched to investigate. Soon it became clear that a band of raiders had set up camp near a cluster of caves, preparing to ambush any unsuspecting travelers. The elders called a council and outlined a plan. They would observe first, understand the raiders' numbers and tactics, and then act only when necessary. Ardan felt the weight of responsibility. This was a test of everything he had learned: patience, observation, strategy, and courage. The next morning, before the first light touched the steppe. Ardan and a small group of scouts set out toward the canyon where the raiders had been spotted. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of smoke from the distant fires. Every sound seemed amplified: the rustle of grass, the faint clatter of rocks, the distant call of birds. Ardan's heart pounded, but he focused on the lessons he had learned: patience, observation, and the careful reading of signs in the environment. As they crept closer, the scouts signaled for caution. The raiders had built small watchfires near the caves, and figures moved between rocks and trees, sharpening weapons or adjusting gear. Ardan observed the patterns, noting how the raiders shifted their weight, where they positioned themselves for defense, and the gaps in their formation. Every detail mattered. One misstep could alert the enemy, and one mistake could cost lives. The elders had instructed that the tribe should act only if necessary, relying first on observation to gain an advantage. Ardan realized that strategy and timing were now more important than courage alone. He watched as one raider moved down a narrow path, unaware of the scouts hidden in the grass above. Ardan and his companions signaled silently to each other, coordinating their positions. The steppe had trained them to communicate without words, relying on gestures, glances, and shared understanding. As the sun rose higher, the raiders began to prepare to move toward the valley below. Ardan signaled the elders, and a plan was quickly formed. Using the terrain to their advantage, the scouts guided the raiders into a narrow pass, where their numbers were less overwhelming. Ardan's hands were steady on his bow, his eyes fixed on the movement of the enemy. One false move, and the entire plan could fail. The tension was sharp, every heartbeat a drum of anticipation. When the raiders entered the pass, the elders signaled the attack. Arrows flew, aimed not to kill indiscriminately, but to drive the raiders back and protect the tribe. Ardan released his own arrow with precision, hitting the ground near a raider's feet to force him off balance. Chaos erupted, and yet the tribe moved with coordination and discipline, using the landscape, rocks, hills, and hidden paths to their advantage. Ardan felt a surge of clarity. The lessons of the steppe, the mountains, and the canyons had all prepared him for this moment. The skirmish continued for hours, with careful maneuvering, rapid thinking, and coordinated action. Ardan led younger riders along hidden paths, guiding them to safe positions and helping them take calculated shots. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act wisely under pressure. The raiders, caught off guard by the tribe's strategy, eventually retreated, leaving the pass and nearby valley clear. The elders gathered the group, praising the scouts and young riders for their skill and discipline. That evening, the tribe camped in a hidden grove near the canyon. Ardan tended to his horse, checking every saddle strap and rein for wear or damage, then joined the elders around the fire. They spoke of patience, strategy, and the importance of knowledge. Victory comes not from strength alone, one elder said. It comes from understanding, observation, and the ability to act at the right moment. Today, you have learned that the land, the wind, and every detail of your surroundings can become your greatest allies. Ardan listened intently, feeling the weight of experience settle over him. As night fell, the stars emerged over the canyon, reflecting in the slow-moving river below. Ardan lay on his cloak, thinking of the day's events. The hidden paths, the raiders' missteps, the precise timing of arrows, and the coordinated movements of the tribe. He realized that the steppe was teaching lessons far beyond riding, hunting, or survival. It was teaching insight, patience, and the wisdom to navigate both nature and human conflict. Every day, every observation, every challenge shaped him, preparing him for even greater tests in the vast, unpredictable world of the steppe. The morning after the skirmish with the raiders, the tribe moved cautiously into the deeper expanse of the steppe. The air was dry and sharp, carrying the scent of distant forests and wild grasses. Ardan rode at the front, Windrunner moving steadily beneath him, ears alert to the subtle sounds of the land. The elders had warned that the farther they ventured, the more unpredictable the steppe became. New tribes, unfamiliar predators, and hidden dangers awaited those who were not careful. As they traveled, the terrain shifted from rolling hills to rocky outcrops, dotted with small groves and shallow rivers. Ardan noticed subtle changes, the way the grass bent against the wind, the distant glint of water, and the faint tracks of animals and humans. Each observation could provide vital clues. The elders explained that the land itself was a teacher. It revealed paths, warned of danger, and offered opportunities to those who paid attention. Ardan felt his senses sharpen, his mind working to interpret every detail. By midday, scouts reported a distant group of riders approaching from the east. The elders called a council and examined the signs. The riders' formation, speed, and posture suggested they were part of a neighboring tribe rather than strangers with hostile intent. Ardan felt a surge of anticipation. First contact with another tribe could be dangerous, but it could also be an opportunity to learn and form alliances. The elders instructed patience and careful observation, reminding the young riders that appearances could be deceiving. As the two groups drew closer, Ardan noticed the details, the way the riders held their heads, the placement of their hands on spears, and the spacing between them. The steppe had taught him that even small gestures carried meaning. When the tribes finally met in the open plain, the leaders exchanged cautious greetings. Small gifts of dried meat and crafted tools were offered, and the two groups observed each other silently for a long moment. Ardan felt the tension in the air, yet also the potential for understanding. The elders led a careful negotiation, discussing shared hunting grounds, water sources, and safe passage. Ardan watched closely, learning the subtle art of diplomacy, the power of patience, and the need to interpret intentions without rushing to judgment. Every glance, gesture, and choice of words influenced the outcome. By evening, the two tribes had established an agreement to share the valley for a limited time, avoiding conflict while maintaining independence. Ardan felt a thrill of pride. He had witnessed a victory achieved without violence, through strategy, observation, and respect. That night, as the stars appeared over the valley, the elders spoke of alliances and trust. "Strength alone does not protect us," one said. "Knowledge, patience, and understanding are just as important. The steppe teaches not only how to survive, but how to live among others with wisdom." Ardan lay on his cloak, thinking about the day, the cautious approach, the subtle signals, the negotiations, and the calm resolution. He felt a deepening respect for both the land and the people who had lived and learned from it for generations. Over the following days, the tribe explored the valley and surrounding hills. Ardan learned to track deer, wild horses, and smaller animals, practicing stealth and timing. He discovered hidden water sources and observed the behavior of predators, wolves, foxes, and birds of prey. The elders explained that understanding predators was as important as hunting them. Watching their movements, predicting their choices, and respecting their role in the ecosystem was part of becoming a skilled and responsible member of the tribe. One afternoon, while scouting near a river bend, Ardan spotted fresh wolf tracks. He followed them quietly, observing the patterns, noting the spacing and depth of the prints, and interpreting the likely behavior of the pack. The elders joined him, praising his careful observation. "The steppe speaks to those who listen," one said. "Even the smallest footprints can tell a story of movement, hunger, and survival." Ardan realized that every day brought lessons not just in skill, but in understanding the rhythms of life itself. As evening approached, dark clouds gathered over the distant hills, signaling an approaching storm. The elders instructed the tribe to set camp in a sheltered grove. Ardan helped secure horses, gather firewood, and prepare shelters. The storm arrived with wind and rain, and the young riders huddled together under coverings. Ardan watched the lightning streak across the sky and the thunder roll over the hills. He realized that the steppe's challenges were not only human or animal, they included the raw power of nature itself. Respect and preparation were essential for survival. The morning after the storm, the steppe was transformed. Grass lay flattened by the rain, streams swelled with water, and the air was thick with the scent of wet earth and vegetation. Ardan rode out with a small group of scouts, checking on the horses and observing the landscape for signs of danger. The elders had warned that storms often drove predators closer to the tribe's path and could make even familiar terrain treacherous. Every step, every glance, every sound was crucial. As they moved along a narrow valley, Ardan spotted tracks partially washed by the rain. They were large and uneven, wolves, or perhaps a bear. The elders signaled for silence. Ardan felt a thrill of alertness. This was a test of observation, courage, and instinct. Every movement had to be deliberate. One misstep could startle the predator, putting both humans and horses in danger. The scouts followed the tracks cautiously, moving along the edges of ridges and behind rocks. Ardan observed the spacing and depth of the prints, interpreting the direction and pace. The elders explained that predators often followed water sources after storms, hunting weakened prey. Understanding their behavior could prevent disaster and even provide opportunities for learning survival skills. Ardan felt the weight of responsibility. The lives of the tribe and the horses depended on careful thought and awareness. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from a nearby copse. Ardan froze, signaling to the scouts. Ahead, a large bear emerged, its wet fur slick and eyes sharp, sniffing the air. The elders whispered instructions. Do not approach too closely. Do not panic, and guide the horses slowly away while keeping the animals calm. Ardan's hands were steady on the reins, and his eyes tracked the bear's movements. Timing, patience, and awareness were now more important than speed or force. The group moved cautiously along a ridge, keeping the bear in sight without provoking it. Ardan noticed how the animal shifted its weight, tested the footing, and surveyed the terrain. He realized that the predator, like the steppe itself, required respect. Understanding its behavior, predicting its moves, and reacting calmly were lessons in both courage and intelligence. The tribe slowly guided the horses to a safer position, eventually moving far enough to avoid confrontation. By afternoon, the tribe reached a small grove where the ground was higher and drier. The elders praised the young riders for their composure and attention. "The steppe tests you in many ways," one said. "Not only with enemies or storms, but with the creatures that share this land. Respect, patience, and understanding are as important as strength." Ardan felt a growing sense of confidence and humility. He had faced fear, observed closely, and acted wisely, and the experience had deepened his connection to the steppe. That evening, the tribe set up camp along the banks of a stream. Ardan helped water the horses, secure supplies, and prepare food. Around the fire, the elders spoke of the importance of reading the land and its inhabitants. "Every creature teaches something," one said. "The wolf shows cunning, the bear shows power, the birds show vigilance. Learn from them and you will survive." Ardan listened intently, understanding that survival required more than skill with weapons or horses. It required awareness, insight, and respect for all life. As night fell, Ardan lay beneath the stars, thinking of the bear, the swollen rivers, and the flattened grasses. Each storm, each predator, each observation was a lesson. The steppe demanded constant vigilance, intelligence, and patience. Every day brought new challenges, and every challenge shaped him. Ardan knew that greater tests still lay ahead. Encounters with other tribes, distant mountains, and the harshest reaches of the steppe. Yet he felt ready, his skills, courage, and understanding growing with each passing day. The morning air was crisp as the tribe rode deeper into the uncharted regions of the steppe. The grass grew taller here, swaying like waves under the wind, and distant hills loomed like silent sentinels over the vast plains. Ardan rode at the front, alert to every sound: the whisper of grass, the snap of a branch, the distant calls of birds, and aware that the steppe could hide both opportunity and danger. By midday, scouts spotted signs of another group of humans. The tracks were fresh, deep, and numerous, suggesting a well-organized tribe. The elders called for caution. Ardan felt a mixture of excitement and tension. This could be the first encounter with a neighboring tribe in days, and the outcome could shape their survival, access to resources, or even alliances. The elders explained that observation, patience, and understanding intentions were crucial before taking any action. As the tribe approached the ridge overlooking the newcomers, Ardan noted their posture, weapons, and formation. They were moving steadily, clearly aware of the land, and likely skilled in both hunting and defense. One of the elders whispered, "Do not reveal your numbers too soon. Show respect, but maintain control of the situation." Ardan realized that this encounter required more than courage. It required diplomacy, insight, and timing. The two tribes finally met in a wide plain, each cautious, assessing the other. The air was tense, yet calm, with both groups understanding that rash actions could lead to unnecessary conflict. The elders from both sides exchanged small gifts of food and tools, observing reactions carefully. Ardan studied the subtle cues: how hands were extended, how heads tilted, how eyes met or avoided each other. He understood that trust was built slowly, and respect could prevent violence. After long discussions, the leaders agreed to a temporary sharing of a nearby valley rich with game and fresh water. Ardan watched as both groups set up camp in a manner that maintained boundaries while allowing coexistence. The elders instructed him to help the younger riders learn the signs of diplomacy: respectful gestures, the careful offering of assistance, and the importance of timing in communication. Every small interaction carried lessons in strategy, observation, and human behavior. Over the next several days, the two tribes hunted together, shared water sources, and exchanged knowledge of the land. Ardan learned new tracking techniques from the visiting tribe, observing how they read subtle signs in the grass, soil, and wind. He also practiced leadership, guiding younger riders through hunting routes and coordinating movements to avoid conflict over resources. The steppe was teaching him that survival required intelligence, patience, and cooperation, not just strength and skill with weapons. One afternoon, scouts reported fresh tracks of predators, a pack of wolves moving near the river. Both tribes quickly organized a plan to protect the horses and young riders. Ardan followed the elders' instructions carefully, observing the wolves' movements, predicting likely paths, and positioning the riders to safeguard the camp. The predators approached, but the combined strategies of the tribes prevented any harm. Ardan realized that alliances not only brought strength, but also enhanced survival, providing safety and shared knowledge in a harsh environment. That evening, the tribes gathered around their fires, sharing stories of hunts, ancestors, and lessons learned from the land. The elders spoke of respect, vigilance, and the importance of understanding others. The steppe rewards those who observe, learn, and act with wisdom, one said. Strength alone cannot ensure survival. Knowledge, patience, and alliances are just as vital. Ardan lay under the stars, thinking of the wolves, the neighboring tribe, and the subtle negotiations of the day. Every lesson, every observation, every interaction had shaped him further. Over the following weeks, the tribes continued their cautious coexistence, teaching each other hunting strategies, sharing water routes, and even exchanging stories of past travels. Ardan's skills and understanding grew rapidly. He learned to interpret intentions, coordinate movements across terrain, and anticipate both natural and human threats. He realized that the steppe demanded not only physical skill but insight, diplomacy, and careful judgment. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities to grow. Weeks passed as the two tribes learned to coexist, sharing knowledge of the land, water, and hunting grounds. Ardan had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. The lessons of the steppe, patience, observation, strategy, and respect, had become a part of him. He could track prey, read signs of predators, understand the intentions of humans, and guide younger riders with skill and care. The challenges of storms, wild animals, and hostile strangers had forged him into a capable young warrior, but also a thoughtful and observant leader. One evening, as the sun set over the rolling plains, Ardan stood atop a hill overlooking the valley. The rivers shimmered like silver threads, the horses grazed quietly, and the distant tribes' campfires glowed softly in the fading light. He reflected on the journey, the golden stag in the early days, the wild horses, the first attack, the storms, the predators, and the alliances. Every experience, every decision, every observation had shaped him. He realized that true strength lay not only in skill or courage, but in understanding the world, respecting life, and acting with wisdom. The elders gathered the tribe, and together they made the decision to move onward, deeper into the steppe, seeking new horizons while maintaining the lessons learned. Ardan rode with them, confident in his abilities, aware of the responsibilities of leadership, and ready for the adventures yet to come. The steppe stretched endlessly before them, wild, untamed, and full of lessons waiting to be discovered. As night fell, the stars illuminated the vast plains, and Ardan sat by the fire with the young riders, sharing stories and laughter. The steppe had taught him endurance, patience, courage, and insight. It had shown him the importance of observation, respect, and connection, not only with the land and animals, but with other humans. He knew that the journey would continue, and that the lessons of the steppe would guide him wherever he went. And so, my friends, that is the story of Ardan, the young scribe of the steppe, and the tribe of the ancient Scythians. From the rolling plains to the wild rivers, from the golden stag to the distant tribes, the steppe shaped a young boy into a wise and courageous warrior, ready to face the challenges of the world. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed this journey through the life and adventures of the Scythians. If you liked this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. And of course, leave a comment down below telling me what part of Ardan's adventure was your favorite. I'd love to hear from you. Good night, my friends, and may your dreams be full of adventure, courage, and the endless beauty of the steppe. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next story.